Okay, the first topic we're going to cover in BO63 is working from home, or teleworking as it's also known. Okay, so teleworking or home working is a collaborative process in which the employee works from home using ICT and is remotely connected to the company using a computer network. When I say connected to the employer, what I mean is they will be connected to the employer's computer network, so they will be able to access files and resources that they need to do their work. So, home working relies on the principle of cloud computing. We should know what cloud computing is, but I will go through it again once for you. So cloud computing is the process of storing data in a remote server, so it can be accessed from anywhere with an internet connection. It's not only data that can be stored, it's also software. So if you can't afford to pay for a software, you can actually pay to use a software or rent a software via cloud computing. Here's a little picture that shows how the organisation is connected to the teleworkers, so the people who work for them. Sometimes members of staff will still need to go into the office. That is called core time in some places, and this is for things that need to be done face to face, such as meetings and things like this. In some cases they will also supply the equipment that the employee needs to actually be able to do the work. So there are many benefits of teleworking or working from home. One is convenience, so you can work at times that fit in with any family or social commitments. Also, less time and stress is spent worrying or actually travelling to work. Obviously costs less to work at home than it actually does travelling every day to work, so you save that money. It helps disabled people get into work, so people who maybe can't leave their house will be able to work using this system. It's also useful for single parents, people who have childcare commitments, that obviously makes them more flexible. And also you don't need to move house or relocate when you get a new job. In terms of the disadvantages, there may be distractions, other family members, or just general noise that can distract you from your work. The employer, this is a disadvantage for the employer, they have to provide and maintain the ICT equipment that they provide you with. The employer will pay towards heating and lighting allowance, which obviously costs them money. Obviously, if you're working at home, you're paying the electricity yourself, and so the employer will make a contribution. But it may be cheaper in the long run than having an office. Another disadvantage is sometimes an employee might feel a little isolated, okay? That is, if they are at home and they have a problem with something, they won't actually be able to ask anyone unless they make direct contact with the company. And obviously it's a lot slower than just turning around to a colleague and asking for some assistance. Building on this, if you work at home and never get to meet any colleagues or only see them very briefly or not very often at all, then obviously you will feel isolated even more so. Also, if you're working at home, your work-life balance will become confused because you'll be working and living in the same place, which can cause you to never switch off from work. We've looked at it briefly, but we're going to go into a bit more detail now in terms of the benefits and drawbacks of teleworking for the employer, for the person who is having staff work for them from home. Well, first advantage, skills shortages can be solved using non-local workers, so you don't have to live in the area of the company. If there's people in your area that aren't suitable for the work that you want to do, but in other areas there are, you can obviously get these people from other areas to work from home for you. There's also less overheads because you don't need large offices. When I say overheads, I mean costs such as obviously the office itself, heating and lighting. There are also fewer other staff costs. For example, you're not going to need as many caretakers and cleaners if you don't have an office. However, meetings are hard to hold as people obviously are not in the office all the time. You can do this virtually or physically, But either way, a physical meeting will take a long time to organise, and a virtual meeting may have many ICT issues, poor internet connections, and other related problems. You also can't supervise your workers. It's hard to tell whether they're working hard or not. Now, research in the past has shown that people who work from home do work harder because they feel they have to prove what they do, but obviously this is not always the case. Working from home means that you need to use data from work at home, which obviously has security issues in it not being as secure as if you were only able to access it at work physically in the office. And finally, obviously, there is a cost involved for purchasing equipment for staff, and that needs to be maintained as well, so that is a cost. Probably a lower cost than office space and things like that, but it's still a cost. Okay, so there's some benefits for society in general for teleworking. Have a think for a second of some that you can think of, and then we'll go through them together. Okay, let's have a think about this. Okay, well, there's less traffic and less environmental damage. Okay, it can also help a local economy if you're working from areas which are a bit more remote. Then obviously this allows people to get into work who might not have been able to, so it can benefit their economy. If you can think of some of your own, please do. This is just to get started. We're going to have a look just briefly at the Aqualung case study just to see how this applies, because one of the most important of this is that you always apply the case study to the question. If you do not do that, you will not get any marks, so please do that. So how does this relate to Aqua Inflatables? Well, a lot of the staff of Aqua Inflatables work from home using open source license and bespoke software. Okay, they may be the designers, they may be customer service staff. There's a range of staff that could be working from home. They've also spoken about sharing documents with staff and external suppliers of the business. There will be another video on open source license and bespoke software next, so look out for that. In the meantime, a question for you. What are the advantages and disadvantages of home working for the employee? That's the person who is the worker, the one working at home. You could say this is an 8-mark question. Give it a go.